ghouls and gals, and welcome to the Haunted Library. Today I will be reading A Hell of a Paradise book. If you don't mind, come now, come. Hell of a Paradise. The door chime tinkled as the wicker door to the tiki hut swung open. The smell of eucalyptus and sage drifted in on the breeze. His spine stiffened and Derek twisted away from the door, trying to hide his face. A burst of laughter that was all too familiar treated his ears. There's no fucking way, he thought. I checked and double-checked and rechecked. This island isn't affiliated with the family. Sir? Excuse me. Sir? Hello? Snapping his gaze to the bartender, the young man standing in front of him holding a blue cocktail. I didn't order that, he said, blocking his face with a hand. Oh, I know. That firecracker at the end of the bar asked me to bring it to you. Clearing his throat, he looked very uncomfortable. Still holding the glass out in front of him, spreading apart his fingers, a honey-colored eye met hers instantly, her jade eyes swimming with mischief. Letting out a half-choke and sob, Derek reached for the cocktail, straightening in his seat, tipping the glass to her. To anyone else, we might look like a flirty, budding romance, but the last time I saw that praying mantis, she put two in my chest and left me to die. Rookie mistake, though. She didn't wait for the death rattle before she left her prey, he thought, her long red hair flowing down her back, the ivory color of her dress making it glow in the dim light. Leaning forward, resting her elbows on the bar, she smiled sweetly. Swallowing hard, he took a drink. The blue raspberry flavor exploded in his mouth, making his jaw clench. It's called Blue Ball, sir, if you want another, the boy muttered before scampering away from the bar. The bar began to swim and his vision blurred. Of course, that's why he was so nervous. She poisoned me. Slumping forward, his face cracked the bar. The pain in his cheek was dulled by the drug, and the metallic taste filled his mouth, chasing out the sour berry. Off in the distance, the screech of the chair legs against the wood floor grated his ears. Running her hand along his back, her hair fell over his face. She leaned in and nuzzled in his ear. You know, Bunny, I liked you better dead. The room plunged into darkness. Prying his eyes open, he tried to look around. The bright sunlight was blinding. His head pounding against his temples, he dry-heaved. The force kicked up sand and tossed it into his face. He recoiled from the sand. The jarring moment sent his head spinning again. It's time to wake up, Bunny. You've been sleeping so long, I'm getting bored, Valencia said, toeing his ribs with a black boot. Jerking his head, he tried to sit up. His hands and feet were tied. Wiggling the best he could, he peeled an eye open to look up at her. Pulling out a knife, she tilted it into the sun, causing the refraction of the light to shine over his face. Ugh. Val, untie me. Let's talk about it. Throwing the knife down, it landed in the sand in front of his face. A thin trickle of blood ran down his cheek. Untie yourself. And I have no idea what you could possibly want to talk about. You know, this island is for blood sports. We stock it with whatever we choose, so I would hurry up if I were you. If you make it off Sharkfin Island and swim back to Killig Island, we can talk about whatever you want. Walking towards the beach, her boots splashing into the tide, she laughed and swung a long leg over the red jet ski that bobbed along the current. Tide's rolling in, Bunny, she yelled over the engine. Rolling over onto his stomach, he pushed up to his knees, nausea taking over him. The force of the dry heave almost knocked him back into the sand. Derek shuffled to his knees, grabbed the knife. Sawing in short bursts, he began to work on the thick ropes. The cold water swept around his knees and retreated into the ocean. Once his hands were free, he flopped onto his butt and started sawing frantically at the ropes on his ankles. The tide poured over his legs, touching his short ribs and sending a chill over his exposed torso. It withdrew, leaving bubbles scattered on the sand. Sighing in relief when the final strand broke free, Derek jumped to his feet. Retreating up to the white sand beach, palm trees scattered the sands. The lush woodland framing the beach was a brilliant green. This would make a beautiful vacation spot. Well, if I wasn't supposed to die here, he thought. Swatting the sand from his shorts, he headed to the woods, his flip-flops doing little to stop the sticks and underbrush from stabbing into his feet. Blood soon squished in his shoes, attracting small flies that hovered around his ankles. A twig snapped to his left, causing him to freeze. Scanning the trees, his heart sank into his gut, fear numbing his legs. A brown bear ambled through the trees. It stopped and stood up on its hind legs. The bear was probably 8 foot tall, reaching into a tree to swat at some berries, licking its lips and showing large teeth. "Oh, shit," he mouthed wordlessly. Backing up slowly, still unnoticed, Derek made a wide berth around the bear, keeping an eye on it the whole time. I guess the blood sport was bear hunting, he thought. A loud bark froze him in place. The grizzly bear was looking right at him. Barking again, the bear started towards him, huffing. Then the bear picked up speed. "God damn it," Derek yelled. Running through the trees, he knew not to run with a grizzly. However, when a 900-pound beast is coming at you, standing your ground isn't an option your body will accept. Weaving in and out of the trees, Derek didn't risk a glance behind him. If the pounding of paws could be heard, safety was not an option. His foot slid on the wet flip-flop, causing him to crash into the dirt. Scrambling, he threw the shoes and took off at full speed. Jumping into a brown pond, he started to wade across. When he didn't hear a second splash, he risked a glance at the bear. Whining, the bear stamped its foot on the ground but made no move to enter the water. Bears can't swim, he thought. No, that can't be right. They fish. As he pumped his arms, it became harder and harder to move. It was like the mud was eating his feet, pulling him down. His head was barely above the water. Gasping, he tried to move back to the shallows. Derek couldn't pick up his feet. This is it. I'm going to die here. I'm so sorry, he thought. The growl of an ATV could be heard in the distance, growing louder. Driving up to the puddle, the ATV stopped, and the driver cocked their head, staring down at the murky waters. Taking off the helmet, Valencia stepped down, placing the black helmet on the seat. Shaking out her red hair, inhaling deeply, she let out a tired sigh. Pulling the rope free, she tossed it to Derek. Fumbling with his fingers, he grabbed onto the rope. Valencia stared at him, drumming her fingers on the button. Growling, she flicked the switch. The rope tightened, pulling him closer to the shore. Derek choked as it pulled his head above water. The whirring of the winch purred as the rope brought him closer to safety. When his hand smacked the shore, he began to scramble up the bank. In 2 long strides, she stood in front of him. She stepped on his hand and he released the rope with a yelp. "Damn it, Val, can we just talk about this?" he said, shaking the pain from his throbbing fingers. "There's nothing to talk about. You, however, are losing your touch. Running into a mud pit like that? Bunny, what have you been doing in these last 10 years? Playing Scrabble on a golf course?" Squatting down, her eyes darted around his face. "You have every right to be mad. I left you and you're angry and you don't know what to do with those emotions because I know you still love me too," he said, wiggling up the bank. The mud stuck to him like cement, making it hard to move. Laughing, Valencia straightened and brushed the sand from her pants. "Funny. You really think I'm some heartbroken teenager having a princess fit? Newsflash, Derek. I plan on saving you as many times as I want, until I'm fully satisfied and decide to let you die." Kicking him in the face, Derek went limp. Observing his chest rise and fall, Valencia turned away. Wiping her eyes, she flicked the winch button off on the ATV. Giving him one last look, she drove away. Groaning, Derek peeked his eyes open. Why does this keep happening to me? Blinking his eyes, he screamed, shaking a large blue spider from his hand. Stammering to his feet, he walked up the bank. Sitting at the base of the tree was a pink box. He nudged it with his toes, waiting for it to explode. Finding a stick, he pushed the lid off. Peeking into the box, the tension fled from his body. Inside the box was a flashlight. Picking up the flashlight, he turned it on, amazed when a stream of white light broke through the dark dusk. A black envelope caught his eye. He picked it up and ripped open the paper, the glitter exploding everywhere. His face deadpan, he looked down at the pink reflective spots now covering his body. He pulled the card out and read it slowly. I remember how much you hate glitter. The price to pay for a flashlight, I guess. Try not to suck so bad. V. Shaking off as much of the glitter as he could, he headed for the break in the trees. He had no idea which way that bear took him. Heading north was as good a guess as any. If I can find Ursa Minor, I can follow Polaris out of here. Hopefully, he thought. Pushing through the trees, he was going to walk as far as he could in the dark, saving the batteries for emergencies. Who knew how long he would be here? It was near black as far as the eye could see. Breaking the tree line, however, the sky lit up like a blanket of fireflies. He had never seen so many stars. The full moon lit up the beach, causing the white sand to glow. Looking up at the sky, he slowly spun in a circle. Following the handle of the Little Dipper, he found Polaris. I'm not as far off as I thought. If I stick to the shore, I'm assuming I'll see fewer big animals. The tide gently licked up the shores, and the wind blowing through the palm trees made a harmonious symphony. The sand was almost too hot to touch. He was thankful for the darkness for the first time tonight. As the adrenaline wore down, Derek's move became sluggish. Maybe I'll stop for a quick rest. I haven't seen any animal tracks since I've been out here, he thought, falling to his butt, leaning back, looking up at the stars. Maybe Val will let me buy this island from her, and I'll never leave. It's beautiful here, he thought, as slumber overtook him. Rolling over into the warm sand, he stretched out. Groaning, he sat up, scratching his head. The white beach was littered with translucent blobs. The jellyfish had washed ashore in the tides, thankfully missing his legs. Valencia, you could at least give me some food. Unless that's the death you want for me, I'm hungry, Derek yelled at the sky. Kicking the sand, he started his journey north again, walking closer to the tree line, the emerald canopy casting a cooling shadow as the sun journeyed across the sky and heated up the sand to molten levels. Burning the soles of his feet, Derek conceded the easy path, venturing back into the forest. His pace slowed to a crawl, and eyeing the path ahead carefully, he dodged the brambles and rocks, stopping at a little creek that babbled along happily, gazing longingly at a turtle that was basking on a rock. Shifting from left to right, he got closer. Picking up a rock, he paused. Pinching the turtle with his index finger and thumb, he flipped it over on its back. The legs of the turtle came out of the shell, trying in vain to flip itself back over. Derek raised the rock into the air. Coming down with all his might, he hit the rock right next to the turtle. Riding the turtle to its feet, it jumped back in the water and swam away. I'm sorry, little turtle. This isn't your fault. I'm just so hungry. Throwing the rock back onto the bank, a strange noise caught his attention. Straining his ears, he listened hard. Unless he was succumbing to delusions this early, there was music in the air. Taking off at a run, he tore through the forest. Roots and rocks dug into his feet, but he didn't care. If the end was this close, he had to hurry. The trees began to thin, and the hot sand spurred on his haste. What is that delicious smell? Barbecue? He thought. Drooling like Pavlov's dogs, his stomach growling like a lion. Running down the beach, he groaned in frustration. Valencia was on the beach in a red bikini. A large metal cage was around the grill. Smiling, she waved the tongs at him. Wow, you made it here fast, she said, flipping over the steaks. This is dirty, even for you, he said, pulling on the lock cage. Let me in. Nah, I think I'll have my lunch first. Fuck you. All I have to do is swim back to Killig Island, right? He said, stomping past the cage. Do you know why this is called Shark Fin Island? She asked, not even turning around. The water rolling in was a pale red, and chunks of fresh chum bobbed in the water. Numerous shark fins dotted the surf. You have got to be shitting me, he said breathlessly, running a hand through his hair. I guess you can just watch me starve. Stomping back toward the cage, he let out a yelp and bent down to snatch up a snake. It was a deep purple and black. Are you fucking kidding me, Val? Witch adders? He said, dropping the snake as he collapsed onto the ground. The black veins ran up his legs from the bite mark. Don't be Screaming, she ripped open the door to the cage. No, it can't be. I didn't stalk any of those. She dropped to her knees beside him to examine the bite. The rapid wheeze of him inhaling could be heard over the waves. Do you have the antidote? I wish you would have just let me drown, he said, breathing like a fish, gasping in and out. A burst of vindictive laughter broke through the panic. Side-eyed, Valencia bored holes in the man leaning against the trees. What did you do, Devin? She shrieked, stalking across the beach, his brown eyes never leaving Derek's face. You didn't think I would let my wife run off to Killiga Island and not follow her? Wife? Derek choked out, tears streaming down his face. Shooting to her feet, Valencia pulled out a gun. Dropping the hammer, she pointed it right at Devin's head. Give me the antidote, she demanded through clenched teeth. Darling, I know you inside and out, he said, closing the gap between them. He pressed the barrel of the gun to his forehead. I know you wouldn't hurt me. You're just mad I ruined your little game. I didn't bring any antidote with me. Oops. Smirking, his eyes finally left Derek to investigate the depths of her shattered soul. Laughing, her eyes dropped to the sand as she licked her lips. Her arm wavered, and the gun dropped for a second. Her green eyes were an inferno of pain when she looked at Devin. She pulled the trigger. Brains blew back over the grill, adding to the aroma of cooked meat. His body hit the sand with a thud. She dropped to her knees beside him and feverishly searching his pockets for the antidote, but came out empty-handed. Screaming, she beat her fist on his chest, the compressions causing bursts of blood to squirt out of his empty head. Spinning on hands and knees, she faced Derek. Sob wrecked her chest. You were right. I was mad. You wanted to get out of that life, and I was too scared to follow you. I have regretted that choice every day since I have made it. I only married Devin so he wouldn't hunt you down. I told him I would take care of it. I'm so sorry. Pushing in on her boot, a little compartment opened. Pulling a ring out, she removed her wedding ring, tossing it at Devin, replacing it with a small engagement ring. She curled into Derek, holding his hand. Don't cry, Val. You always said it made you ugly. Coughing, he turned his face to nuzzle her hair. You still smell like eucalyptus and sage. It's my favorite smell. I love... His word cut off with a gurgle as blood spilled out of his mouth. I love you too, Bunny, she wailed, clenching his waist. You know, I guess running into your ex can ruin anything, even a perfectly good vacation. Until next time, happy hauntings.